Hello, ladies, and welcome. Today I'm going to be reviewing the book, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, and I'm going to be focused on Chapter 10, Beware the Fragile Ego, and I'm going to be reading page 303, Signs of Envy. I think this will be helpful to a lot of you because it's important to recognize when someone is envious of you. A lot of women try to or want to make new friends and often end up in situations with a knife in their back or some terrible type of harm done to them because they don't see the warning signs of someone pretending to like them and pretending to be their friend when the person really has some very hateful feelings about them. So I'm going to read on the first page of chapter 10 before I jump into page 303 where the signs of envy are listed. The law of envy. We humans are naturally compelled to compare ourselves with one another. We are continually measuring people's status, the levels of respect and attention they receive, and noticing any differences between what we have and what they have. For some of us, this need to compare serves as a spur to excel through our work. For others, it can turn into deep envy, feelings of inferiority and frustration that lead to covert attacks and sabotage. Nobody admits to acting out of envy. You must recognize the early warning signs. Praise and bids for friendship that seem effusive and out of proportion. Subtle digs at you under the guise of good-natured humor. Apparent uneasiness with your success. It is most likely to crop up among friends or your peers in the same profession. Learn to deflect envy by drawing attention away from yourself. Develop your sense of self-worth from internal standards and not incessant comparisons. Now I'm just going to stop here just to say comparison is so very dangerous, and it's one of the first warning signs that I notice when I meet someone new. It's particularly awful if a man is comparing himself to a woman, but I have had that happen. I have seen that, unfortunately. But when you notice that a woman who you're getting to know is comparing herself to you, watch out. So let's see. I'm going to read. Maybe I'll start reading on page 301 because this looks interesting. So, yes, I'm going to start at page 301. And he has a quote here at the top of the page. Every time a friend succeeds, I die a little. Gore Vidal. Keys to human nature. Of all the human emotions, none is trickier or more elusive than envy. It is very difficult to actually discern the envy that motivates people's actions or to even know that we have suffered an envy attack from another. This is what makes it so frustrating to deal with and so dangerous. The reason for this elusiveness is simple. We almost never directly express the envy we are feeling. If we feel anger toward people because of something they said or did, we may try to disguise our anger for various reasons, but we are aware that we are feeling hostile. Eventually, the anger will leak out in some nonverbal behavior, and if we act upon our anger, the target will feel it for what it is, and more often than not, know what caused the anger in the moment. But envy is very different. All of us feel envy, the sensation that others have more of what we want: possessions, attention, respect. We deserve to have as much as they do, yet feel somewhat helpless to get such things. But as discussed above, envy entails the admission to ourselves that we are inferior to another person in something we value. Not only is it painful to admit this inferiority, but it is even worse for others to see that we are feeling this. And so almost as soon as we feel this initial pangs of envy, we are motivated to disguise it to ourselves. It is not envy we feel, but unfairness at the distribution of goods or attention, resentment at this unfairness, even anger. Furthermore, the other person is not really superior, but simply lucky, overly ambitious, or unscrupulous. That's how they got to where they are. Having convinced ourselves that envy is not motivating us, but something else. We also make it very difficult for others to detect the underlying envy. They see only our anger, indignation, hostile criticisms, poisonous praise, and so on. And I'm going to stop there. And I'm just going to say back to what I was saying about comparisons and how they can be so dangerous. And some people won't even try to hide that they're comparing that they're comparing themselves to you, and that's really horrible. I had a relative some years ago who I'm no longer in contact with because of her terrible behavior for years and years. But when I had purchased my first home, my aunt had come down from Pennsylvania to visit my grandmother and just to visit the family and everything. And she came to my home, and she came along with this relative and my grandmother, and she came over and she was just complimenting me on the home and how it was decorated, and she was like, "It's really beautiful. I'm proud of you, blah, blah, blah." So this relative says, "Well, wait until you see my house." And it was like, what? Like, why are you like annoyed or you feel a certain way because our aunt is complimenting me on my first home? Like, what is wrong with you? And it wasn't that. It was like just so many other things like that this relative would do. Like, she once had made a comment to me that I always seem like I'm on top financially. I always seem to be able to get what I want, stuff like that. And it would just be like, I'm not doing anything that anyone else, anyone can do what I'm doing. I'm just working. I'm just building my career and spending my money wisely. You can do it too. But she was also very, terribly irresponsible with money and everything else. But she was one of those people who wanted other people to bankroll her lifestyle, but would constantly compare herself to people, even though she didn't want to put in the work. But I'm just saying that to say, I'm sharing that because you may have relatives or friends who do that to you. And if they do, you may as well just cut your losses, because that's not somebody who's truly for you, and they are just waiting for the opportunity to really stab you in the back. So it's best to get away from those types of people as soon as possible. So, okay, I'm going to start reading here on page 303, where he lists the signs of envy. Signs of envy. Although the signs are subtle, envious feelings tend to leak out and can be detected if you are observant. Seeing one such sign in isolation might indicate passive or weak envy. You want to look for combinations or repetitions of the following signs, a pattern, before moving to alert mode. Micro expressions. When people first experience envy, they have not yet fooled themselves into thinking it is something else, and so they are more prone to leakage than later on. That is why first impressions are often the most accurate and should be given weight in this case. Envy is most associated with the eyes. The root of the Latin word for envy, invita, means to look through, to probe with the eyes like a dagger. The early meaning of the word was associated with the evil eye and the belief that a look could convey a curse and physically harm someone. The eyes are indeed a telling indicator, but the envious microexpression affects the entire face. You will notice the envier's eyes momentarily boring into you with a look that suggests disdain and a touch of hostility. It is the look of a child who feels cheated. With this look, the corners of the mouth will often be turned down, the nose in a sneering, somewhat upturned position, the chin jutting out. Although the look will be a little too direct and held a little too long, it still will not last more than a second or two. It is usually followed with a strained, fake smile. Often you will see the look by accident as you suddenly turn your head their direction, or you will feel their eyes burning into you without directly looking at them. Have any of you experienced this? I can say that I've definitely experienced this in the workplace more than once, where I just know that there's just someone staring at me, like a woman just staring at me. And I already know the person doesn't like me, and it's just like, if you hate me so much, what the hell are you looking at me for? Don't you want to go look at something that you like? So anyway, people are so crazy. So I'm going to skip the next two paragraphs because he goes into, in this book, he gives examples by talking about he uses historical references. So that's what he's doing in these next two paragraphs. So I'm going to skip down to the next section, which is poisonous praise. A major envy attack is often preceded by little envy bites, offhand comments expertly designed to get under your skin. Confusing paradoxal praise is a common form of this. Let us say you have completed a project, a book, a film, some creative venture, and the initial response from the public is quite positive. Enviers will make a comment praising the money you will now be making, implying that that is the main reason you have worked on it. You want praise for the work itself and the effort that went into it, and instead they imply that you have done it for the money, that you have sold out. You feel confused. They have praised you, but in a way that makes you uncomfortable. These comments will also come at moments chosen to cause maximum doubt and damage. For instance, just when you have heard the good news and feel a flush of joy. Similarly, in noting your success, they may bring up the least likable parts of your audience, the kinds of fans or consumers who do not reflect well on you. Well, I'm sure Wall Street executives are going to love this. This is thrown in among other normal comments, but the guilt by association lingers in your mind. Or they will praise something once you have lost it. A job, a house in a nice neighborhood, a spouse who has left you. That was such a beautiful house. What a shame. It's all said in a way that seems compassionate but has a discomforting effect. Poisonous praise almost always indicates envy. They feel the need to praise, but what dominates it, the underlying hostility. If they have a habit of praising in this way, if you experience it several times, it is probably an indication of something more intense stirring within them. Backbiting. If people like to gossip a lot, particularly about common acquaintances, you can be sure they will gossip about you. And gossip is a frequent cover for envy, a convenient way to vent it by sharing malicious rumors and stories. When they talk about others behind their backs, you will see their eyes light up and their voice become animated. It gives them a joy comparable to schadenfreude. They will elicit any kind of negative report about a common acquaintance. A frequent theme in their gossip is that no one's really that great, and people aren't what they pretend to be. If you ever get wind of a story they have spread about you, why am I messing up that word? I don't know, subtly or not so subtly negative, only one such instance should be enough to raise your antenna. What indicates active envy in this case is that they are your friend and they feel the need to vent their underlying hostility to a third party rather than keep it to themselves. If you notice that friends or colleagues are suddenly cooler to you than before for no apparent reason, such gossiping might be the source and would be worth ferreting out. In any event, serial gossipers do not make loyal and trustworthy friends. One thing I've never understood is why so many people get caught up in this and don't realize that if someone is gossiping to you, they're gossiping about you. Because what exactly is the point of talking badly about someone behind their back? Especially when you see a person who talks badly about a person, but then when the person is around, they're like smiling in their face like they're their best friend. And then in the workplace, this is problematic because it's causing division within a team to do that. So again, I would side-eye a person who was behaving this way. Next is the push and pull. As we saw in the Jane Williams story, Enviers often use friendship and intimacy as the best way to wound the people they envy. Excuse me. They display unusual eagerness to become your friend. They saturate you with attention. If you are in any way insecure, this will have great effect. They praise you a little too effusively too early on. Through the closeness they establish, they are able to gather material on you and find your weak points. Suddenly, after your emotions are engaged, they criticize you in pointed ways. The criticism is confusing, not particularly related to anything you have done, but still you feel guilty. They then return to their initial warmth. The pattern repeats. You are trapped between the warm friendship and the occasional pain they inflict. In criticizing you, they are experts at picking out any possible flaws in your character or words you might have regretted and giving them great emphasis. They are like lawyers building a case against you. When you've had enough and decide to defend yourself or criticize them or break off the friendship, they can now ascribe to you a mean or even cruel streak and tell others of this. You will notice in their past other intense relationships with dramatic breakups, always the other person's fault. And at the source of this pattern, something hard to discern is that they choose to befriend people whom they envy for some quality, then subtly torture them. In general, criticism of you that seems sincere but not directly related to anything you have actually done is usually a strong sign of envy. People want to bully and overwhelm you with something negative, both wounding you and covering any tracks of envy. I have definitely dealt with this type of person before, and it was in the workplace. There was someone who was just like trying to befriend me, like way, like she was like really just way out there. And I made the mistake of doing something that I do any place that I work that I don't see as a big deal. Was going to happy hour with this woman, just being friendly, just thinking we're just going, have a drink after work and chit chat. And then after that, she started to like really just cross boundaries and thought like acting like we were just best friends, and she was turning into some like stalker type. It was just really crazy. And then what she did was she was just doing all kind of crazy stuff. Of course she started like trying to make me like out to be like the bad one in the office. She was trying to cause division in the office. She was like messing with, I don't want to say what she did. How can I, without saying her role, because if I say her role, it would be easy to know who she is. But one of the things she did was one day we're sitting, we're in the office, and she just says to one of the managers, me and so are going on a cruise, but she doesn't know it yet. She just like blurted that out, talking about me, and I was sitting right there, and I'm like, excuse me? Like, I'm not going on no cruise with you. What are you talking about? But that was the level where this woman was. She had like, I know some of my stories are going to make you all like, what in the hell? But I'm telling you all, I have had a very interesting life. I'm not going to share all the time because it can be a bit much, but I have run into some very, very interesting characters over the years. But yeah, this woman was really out there. But then also on the flip side of that, you have to think about when someone genuinely has an interest in you, and you meet at work. And I think that it's a terrible thing when women say that after a certain age, they don't want to have any more friends, they don't trust women and blah, 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 because you really could be shutting yourself off to a really great relationship with a really great woman. So I don't think that that's a good thing to do. That's just like saying, no, I've learned all I need to learn. I don't ever need to learn anything else. So that's it. So I think that you should always be open to making new friends. And the way that you do that is you see how the person opens up to you over time. Like he's saying here, the person who's trying to do the push and pull, there'll be somebody who's like agreeing with everything you said, always complimenting you. Everything you ask for, they're going to give it to you. Stuff like that. Like they're really, really, really laying it on thick. But if a person is just genuinely being nice to you, like for me, for example, I don't do it as much as I used to, but I'll give things to people. Not because I'm looking to have anything given back to me. That's not why I do it. But like if I have a relationship with someone at work and I think that the person is cool, and I might just be like, hey, if I know that they like a certain, I don't know, candy bar or something like that, and I'm going out grabbing something for myself, I might bring it back for them and be like, hey, I thought about you. Or if I go on vacation, I might bring back a little, something for the person. Nothing large, but I do that. I've been doing that for years, but I don't like try to like overtake the person's life. And I think that's the difference when it's like somebody's badgering you to hang out. Like you hang out with them once and then they want to hang out with you all the time. They're always trying to get in your business, asking questions about your personal life. They're like just always just, they're like one of those people who's just always. And you can tell because there'll be like a nervousness to them. They'll like you one minute, hate you the next. It's just like you really do have to fill people out. But I don't think that it's a good idea to shut out people just because you reach a certain age and maybe you've dealt with some of these really strange people in the past. You just have to let time play out and just, see what's really going on with that person. Okay, so let me see. He has envier types here, and then he's going into some stories. So let's see. Okay, so then he's talking about how parents can create envy by playing favorites. Okay, so I'm going to read this paragraph. Most of us experience moments in childhood in which we feel another person is getting more of the attention that we deserve, but we are able to counterbalance this with other moments in which we experience undeniable love and gratitude for it. As we get older, we can transfer such positive emotions to a series of people: siblings, teachers, mentors, friends, lovers, and spouses. We alternate between wanting more and feeling relatively satisfied and grateful. Those prone to envy, however, do not experience life the same way. Instead, they transfer their initial envy and hostility to a series of others whom they see as disappointing or hurting them. Their moments of satisfaction and gratitude are rare or non existent. I want more, they are always telling themselves. It really does sound like a mental illness, the way he's describing it here. Because envy is a painful sensation, these types will enact lifelong strategies to mitigate or repress these feelings that gnaw at them. They will denigrate anything or anyone good in the world. This means there aren't really people out there worth envying, or they will become extremely independent. If they do not need people for anything, that will expose them to fewer envy scenarios. At an extreme, they will devalue themselves. They don't deserve good things in life, and so have no need to compete with others for attention and status. According to Klein, these common strategies are brittle and will break down under stress. A downturn in their career, bouts of depression, wounds to their ego. The envy they experienced in their earliest years remains continually latent and ready to be directed at others. They are literally looking for people to envy so they can re-experience the primal emotion. Wow. Let's see what else he's saying here. Then the next section is, the leveler. When you first meet them, levelers can seem rather entertaining and interesting. They tend to have a wicked sense of humor. They are good at putting down those who are powerful and deflating the pretentious. They also seem to have a keen nose for injustice and unfairness in this world. But where they differ from people with genuine empathy for underdogs is that levelers cannot recognize or appreciate excellence in almost anyone except those who are dead. Wow. They have fragile egos. Those who have achieved things in life make them feel insecure. They are highly sensitive to feelings of inferiority. The envy they initially feel for those who are successful is quickly covered up by indignation. They rail at high achievers for gaming the system, for being far too ambitious, or simply being lucky and not really deserving praise. They have come to associate excellence with unfairness as a way to soothe their insecurities. You will notice that though they can put others down, they do not take easily to any jokes at their expense. They often celebrate low culture and trash because mediocre work does not stir their insecurities. Besides their cynical humor, you can recognize this type by how they talk about their own life. They love to tell stories of the many injustices inflicted on them. They are always blameless. These types make excellent professional critics. They can use this medium to tear down those who they secretly envy and be rewarded for it. Their main goal is to bring everyone down to the same mediocre level they occupy. This sometimes means leveling not only achievers and the powerful, but also those who are having too good a time, who seem to be enjoying themselves too much, or who have too a great sense of purpose, which levelers lack. Be wary around such good types, particularly in the workplace, because they will make you feel guilty for your own impulse to excel. They will begin with passive aggressive comments that taint you with the ugly word ambition. You might be a part of the oppressor class. They will criticize you in ugly and hurtful ways. They may follow this up with active sabotage of your work, which they justify to themselves as a form of retributive justice. This sounds like that relative that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Sounds just like her. Wow. Okay, so then here's the next section is the self-entitled slacker. In the world today, many people rightfully feel entitled to have success and the good things in life, but they usually understand that this will require sacrifice and hard work. Some people, however, feel they deserve attention and many rewards in life as if they are naturally due to them. These self-entitled slackers are generally quite narcissistic. They will make the briefest outline for a novel or screenplay they want to write or an idea for a brilliant business and feel that is enough to attract praise and attention. But deep down, these slackers feel insecure about their ability to get what they want. That is why they have never really developed the proper discipline. When they find themselves around high achievers who work very hard and have earned true respect for their work, this will make them aware of the doubts about themselves they have been trying to repress. They will move quickly from envy to hostility. Be extra careful in the work environment with those who like to maintain their position through charm and being political rather than by getting things done. They are very prone to envying and hating those who work hard and get results. They will slander and sabotage you without any warning. The next section is the status fiend. As social animals, we humans are very sensitive to our rank and position within any group. We can measure our status by the attention and respect we receive. We are constantly monitoring differences and comparing ourselves with others. But for some people, status is more than a way of measuring social position. It is the most important determinant of their self-worth. You will notice such fiends by the questions they ask about how much money you make, whether you own your home, what kind of neighborhood it's in, whether you occasionally fly business class, and all of the other petty things that they can use as points of comparison. If you are of a higher social status than they are, they will conceal their envy by appearing to admire your success. But if you are a peer or happen to work with them, they will be sniffing for any sign of favoritism or privileges they don't have, and they will attack you in underhanded ways, undermining your position within the group. Have any of you ever come across anyone like this? Someone who asks just inappropriate questions so that they can compare themselves to you, or because they think that you don't have the thing that they're asking for and they think that it's going to make you bad? Okay, I have another story time. This made me laugh because there was this girl I knew from like middle school, and we were like cool back in middle school, and that was like a long, long time ago. And we reconnected many years later when we were working for the same company. We were both working for the same company. You know, your looks don't change that much. You know, you get older, but so we reconnected and we started talking and hanging out and stuff. I ran into her. We stopped talking. We lost touch because some stuff was going on with her, whatever. But I ran into her probably 3 years ago. I went to a gala and I saw her there with her new husband. And I was like, she was walking by and I said her name and she came over and she was like, "Oh, hey, how have you been? What kind of car are you driving right now? Where are you working? What have you been?" She like really started asking me like just like that, like, what kind of car are you driving? Where do you work now? Where do you live? She just like that. I'm not even joking, like just like that. And I just looked at her and I was like, um I'm doing very well. Like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. I must just attract weirdos or something. I must have like a magnet. I don't know. But it was just so crazy because as I was reading this, I just started laughing because when it says that they make comparisons like over petty things, I remember when I did, buy my house, she was one of the people who like asked me what color my washer and dryer was. And I'm just like, it was just the weirdest thing. Like, who in the hell cares? Like, it was so weird. But okay, I'm not going to share any more stories for the remainder. Let me see what else he's talking about here. Okay, so he's going in to talk about um, baseball Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. He's giving another example here. Okay, so then he says recognize status fiends by how they reduce everything to material considerations. When they comment on the clothes you wear or the car you drive, they seem to focus on the money these things must have cost. And as they talk about such things, you will notice something childish in their demeanor, as if they were reliving a family drama in which they felt cheated by a sibling who had something better. Don't be fooled by their driving an older car or dressing shabbily. These types will often try to assert their status in the opposite direction by being the consummate monk, the idealistic hippie, while secretly yearning for the luxuries they cannot get through hard work. If you are around such types, try to downplay or conceal what you have that might trigger envy and talk up their possessions, skills, and status in whatever way you can. Wow. The attacher. In any court like environment of power, you will inevitably find people who are drawn to those who are successful or powerful, not out of admiration, but out of secret envy. They find a way to attach themselves as friends or assistants. They make themselves useful. They may admire their boss for some qualities, but deep down they believe they are entitled to have some of the attention he or she is getting without all the hard work. The longer they are around the high achiever, the more this feeling gnaws at them. They have talent, they have dreams. Why should the person they work for be so favored? They are good at concealing the undercurrent of envy through excessive fawning. But these types attach themselves because it gives them some kind of satisfaction to spoil and wound the person who has more. They are drawn to the powerful out of desire to harm them in some way. Oh my God, that is awful. Wow. Let's see. These types have a trait that is quite common to all enviers. They lack a clear sense of purpose in their lives. They do not know their calling. They could do many things, they think, and often try different jobs. They wander around and feel empty inside. They naturally envy those who act with a sense of purpose and will go so far as to attach themselves to a person's life, partly wishing to get some of what they themselves are missing and partly desiring to harm the other person. That is so sick that people actually seek out people who are doing well to attach themselves to them so they can harm the person. Like, wow. Okay. Okay, so then here he says, in general, be wary of those who are too eager to attach themselves to your life, too impatient to make themselves useful. They try to draw you into a relationship not by their experience and competence, but by the flattery and attention they give you. Their form of attack is to gather information on you that they can leak out or spread as gossip, harming your reputation. Learn to hire and work with those who have experience rather than just a pleasing manner. That line reminds me of the book Corporate Cults, in which the writer of that book talks about how in some of these companies they've hired people for who they are and not what they do. And that is so interesting that he has that here because he's saying hire and work with people who actually have the experience. And I do definitely agree with that because if you're going to hire people for who they are, that just that can cause so many problems in the workplace. Okay, the insecure master. For some people, reaching a high position validates their self opinion and boosts their self esteem, but there are some who are more anxious. Holding a high position tends to increase their insecurities, which they are careful to conceal. Secretly, they doubt whether they are worthy of the responsibility. They look at others who might have more talent, even those below them, with an envious eye. You will work for such bosses under the assumption that they are self assured and confident. How else could they have become the boss? You will work extra hard to impress them. Show them you're a person on the way up, only to find yourself after several months suddenly demoted or fired, which makes little sense since you had clearly delivered results. You did not realize you were dealing with the insecure variety and had inadvertently triggered their self doubts. They secretly envy your youth, your energy, your promise, and the signs of your talent. Even worse, if you are socially gifted and they are not, they will justify the firing or demotion with some narrative they have concocted. You will never discover the truth. Wow, that is awful. So let me skip down a bit. Pay attention to those above you for signs of insecurity and envy. They will inevitably have a track record of firing people for strange reasons. They will not seem particularly happy with that excellent report you turned in. Always play it safe by deferring to bosses, making them look better and earning their trust. Couch your brilliant ideas as their ideas. Let them get all the credit for your hard work. Your time to shine will come, but not if you inadvertently stimulate their insecurities. And then he's going into envy triggers. Let me see how long this is. Okay, I'll probably, Yeah, he's talking about the types that are prone to envy, and then he's talking about circumstances that can trigger envy. I don't think I'm going to read this though because he's going into examples again by talking about different people. But I'll read this paragraph since this is a channel for women, and he has a little paragraph here about women. Women who achieve success and fame are more prone to attracting envy and hostility. Although this will always be veiled as something else, such women are said to be cold, or ambitious, or unfeminine. Oftentimes we choose to admire people who achieve great things, admiration being opposite of envy. We do not feel personally challenged or insecure in the face of their excellence. We might also emulate them, use them as spurs toward trying to achieve more. But unfortunately, this is rarely the case with successful women. A high-achieving woman inflicts greater feelings of inferiority in both other women and men. I'm inferior to a woman, which leads to envy and hostility, not admiration. Terrible. He has a little blurb. Okay, I'll read this paragraph about Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel, the most successful businesswoman of her era, especially considering her origins as an orphan, suffered from such envy her entire life. In 1931, at the height of her power, she met Paul Araby, an illustrator and designer whose career was on the decline. Araby was an expert seducer and they had much in common, but several months into their relationship, he began to criticize her for her extravagance and torment her about her other flaws as he saw them. He wanted to control all aspects of her life. Lonely and desperate for a relationship, she hung on, but she later wrote of Araby, "My growing celebrity eclipsed his declining glory. Araby loved me with the secret hope of destroying me. Love and envy are not mutually exclusive. Successful women will have to bear this burden until such entrenched underlying values are changed. In the meantime, they will have to be even more adept at deflecting envy and playing the humble card." Okay, and then he has a couple more paragraphs in here. He talks about beyond envy. And then I guess he starts to talk about how to transmute and how to deal with envy. But I'm going to stop here because I don't want this to be too long. So yeah, this was The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, and I was covering chapter 10, Signs of Envy, and I started reading, I think, on page 301. So if you have this book and you want to read, go back over what I've read and read the extra paragraphs, because I did skip some paragraphs, and then read the section Beyond Envy at the end of this chapter, which is where he talks about how to deal with envy and how to overcome it if you are experiencing it. That is in chapter 10 as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this review. This is an interesting book. It's a long book. I have read through the entire book, but it's been some time. So I'll probably go through it again and just to see, just as a refresher. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like and subscribe.